Hi, everyone. Here we are again. This is so exciting, right? Nice to see everyone here. Hello and welcome. My name is Kate Moncrief, and I'm the chair of the English department and of the Sophie Kerr Committee. And I am delighted that so many of you could join us to honor Sophie Kerr's legacy and to support and cheer on our prize finalists today. These guys here. This is the 51st time we will award the Sophie Kerr Prize. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the faculty members in the English department who served as members of the Sophie Kerr Prize Selection Committee, and to bid a special welcome to President Landgraf, who joined us this year for the first time. So thank you to them. Thank you. The reason we are here. We have on stage with us today 5 incredibly talented young writers. In a minute, we'll listen to them read from their work. But first, I want to acknowledge all of the students who submitted their writing in consideration for this prize. This was an extraordinarily good year, which made the work of the committee a pleasure, a privilege, and a particular challenge. Every portfolio showcased accomplishment in writing, whether it was a finely crafted poem, a surprising lyrical essay, a beautiful paragraph in a short story, a piece of journalism, an example of letterpress printing, or a meticulously researched academic essay. These students are a true representation of the liberal arts experience, as well as a testament to the fact that Washington College is a writing school, a place across the curriculum where we value and cultivate the ability to think critically and communicate clearly, where we appreciate the desire to tell our stories and the stories of others, and where students who love to read and write find a community and a welcoming home before they take these skills with them into the world. I'd also like to tell you a little bit about Sophie Kerr. She was born in 1880 on the eastern shore of Maryland. She began college at only 14, where she earned a BA and completed a year of graduate study in history at a time when neither were common for women. Over the course of her 40-year career, she served as managing editor of Women's Home Companion, published 23 novels, 500 short stories, and numerous articles in the most popular magazines of her day, including Collier's and the Saturday Evening Post. She saw a play she wrote run on Broadway and be turned into a Hollywood film, 1934's Big-Hearted Herbert. Everyone seen that one? No? She was a voracious reader and an industrious writer who took as her subject matter everything from love and romance to cookery and cats. Her novel, Tigers Is Only Cats, is dedicated to her feline companions, useless and worthless. You might notice our Sophie Kerr logo here bears the image of her black cat, Zuzu. Although 3 of her novels are set on the Eastern Shore, most take place in New York City and feature a heroine who makes her life there, as Kerr did after moving there from Denton, then to Pittsburgh, and then to New York. She was a successful independent woman who supported herself on her earnings. In 1920, she purchased a brownstone on East 38th Street and became the center of a group of literary and theater friends. She lived there until her death in 1965 at age 84. In 1942, when Washington College was celebrating the 50th anniversary of co-education, Sophie Kerr was honored at commencement alongside First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. She became friends with Washington College First Lady Helen Gibson, with whom she shared an appreciation for literature, arts, food, travel, and a deep fondness for the natural world. By 1964, Kerr had published the last of her novels, a collection of Eastern Shore stories called The Sound of Petticoats. That year, she invited Helen Gibson and her daughter Jill for lunch in her home in New York. We don't know what they discussed during that visit, but a year after her death, the college received over $500,000. At her bequest, she stipulated that half the annual earnings each year be given to the graduating senior who shows, this is her quote, "the best ability and promise for future fulfillment in the field of literary endeavor." The Sophie Kerr Prize, this year, $63,711, is the largest undergraduate prize in the world. By comparison, it is larger than the National Book Award, the Pulitzer Prize, and the PEN/Faulkner combined. Tonight's prize, including tonight's prize, in the last 51 years, we will have awarded nearly $2 million. Thank you. Okay, so this prize is pretty splashy. It's why we're all standing here tonight while we're here. But Kerr also specified that the other half of the earnings on that endowment every year be spent on scholarships for young writers, on library books, and on visits by writers and scholars. As a result, hundreds of well-known writers, including, and we'd be here all night if I went through the whole list, but I'm going to just share a few names. Many writers, including Gwendolyn Brooks, Billy Collins, Neil Gaiman, Lauren Groff, Ted Kooser, Lee Young Lee, Colin McCann, Azir Nafisi, Maggie Nelson, Joyce Carol Oates, Claudia Rankin, Jane Smiley, Natasha Trethewey, Colson Whitehead, and Jacqueline Woodson, and more, have come to campus to read from their work, to teach, to lecture, and to conduct writing workshops. I think we can all agree that Kerr's generosity and her vision were transformative. Her decision to dedicate her fortune to nurturing and encouraging young writers has made Washington College a nationally known literary haven, and it is what brings us all here, readers and creative writers, scholars and students of literature, lovers of language and the written word, here today. And now it's my pleasure to turn the podium over to my colleague, Dr. James Allen Hall, who is director of the Rose O'Neill Literary House, and he will introduce our keynote speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, y'all. How's it going? So nice to see so many people here. And if I just may say again how proud I am of each of you. I might get a little teary, too. I can't help it. You guys are, well, you ladies are some of our finest, and we are really we are honored by you tonight, and I know in 10 years I'm going to be reading stuff from all of you. So one quick announcement: please silence your cell phones, because they're about to give you a hell of a reading, so you don't want your phones to go off during that. In the early gestures of Charlotte Bronte's novel Villette, the hero Lucy Snow gazes upon her friend Polly as she sleeps, and Lucy wonders, quote, "How will she get through this world or battle with this life? How will she bear the shocks and repulses, the humiliations and desolations, which books and my own reason tell me are prepared for all flesh?" It's an uplifting novel. The power of books, of the written word, couples here in this scene with Lucy Snow's own reason. I particularly love Bronte's syntax. Listen again to this twister. How will she bear the shocks and repulses, the humiliations and desolations, which books and my own reason tell me are prepared for all flesh? I love how the syntax puts books as a kind of breaker, a dam against the shocks of a life. Books, Bronte implies, are the fortress and the balm, since they hold not just knowledge, but stores of that human armor we call empathy. Few people in U.S. letters understand the power of books to do just that kind of fortressing than Maureen Corrigan, who is the book critic for NPR's Fresh Air, and who also serves as the Nikki and Jamie Grant Distinguished Professor of the Practice in Literary Criticism at Georgetown University. Corrigan is also an associate editor of and contributor to Mystery and Suspense Writers, and the winner of the 1999 Edgar Award for Criticism, presented by the Mystery Writers of America. Corrigan served as a juror for the 2012 Pulitzer Prize in Fiction. Her book, So We Read On, How the Great Gatsby Came to Be and Why It Endures, was published by Little Brown in September 2014. Her literary memoir, Leave Me Alone, I'm Reading, was published in 2005. She is a reviewer and columnist for the Washington Post's Book World, and in addition serves on the advisory panel of the American Heritage Dictionary. She has also chaired the Mystery and Suspense Judges panel of the LA Times Book Prize and is currently a curator at the American Writers Museum in Chicago. She got a lot of side hustle. Professor Corrigan visited us here last fall to speak on The Great Gatsby. It was a rousing lecture. I hope you all made it. And during which I remember she knighted Gatsby, quote, our dampest American novel, since it mentions water either in its physical element or deployed as a figure on almost every page. Corrigan has that gift of insight, hitting on a book's essence and elucidating it. Of Gatsby, she writes, quote, we readers come to understand that in Fitzgerald's view, longing is our national inheritance as Americans. At least it is for those few Americans who, like Gatsby, are brave enough or rash enough to claim it. In an interview with the Chicago Tribune, Corrigan says that while students may not, quote, confess it in a classroom, if they're at all alert to the beauty of language, The Great Gatsby draws you in. It is not just the beauty of language that bewitches us. In her memoir, Leave Me Alone, I'm Reading, Corrigan tells us that, quote, unforgettable books take us to places we didn't even suspect existed, places we may not even have wanted to go. It is the power of the imagination to transport us, to bolster, to absorb the shocks, to lift us out of and put back into ourselves a better version. Without great art and without those who can help steer us to its sustaining wellspring, we would surely wither. I think of the penultimate paragraph of Villette, which ends a little ambiguously. Don't worry, I'm not going to ruin the plot, though books aren't really concerned with that anyway. Here's the almost ending of Bronte's novel. Here, pause at once. There is enough said. Trouble, no quiet, kind heart. Leave sunny imaginations hope. Let it be theirs to conceive the delight of joy born again fresh out of great terror, the rapture of rescue from peril, the wondrous reprieve from dread, the fruition of return. Let them picture union and a happy succeeding life. Isn't that good? Yeah. I love this novel for its ability to reify the imagination, and in particular, sunny imaginations, which hope and reprieve and rapture, and yes, rescue. In writing about Villette, Corrigan shows us how brave Bronte has grown at this point in her career, or maybe, she says, quote, more merciless. And there we have the double blade of the writer laid bare before us. Corrigan also calls the novel, quote, almost unbearable to read, since it explores, quote, the terrors of isolation. I'd argue that this is what Corrigan does as a critic, too, helping us to make space for books, to find the art that is a spell against the isolating world. For though her memoir exhorts us to leave me alone, I'm reading, Corrigan proves that we're never alone when we're in the company of great art. And I, for one, am glad to be in Maureen Corrigan's company tonight. Please help me to welcome back our 2018 Sophie Kerr Keynote speaker, Maureen Corrigan.
Thank you so much, James. I don't think I've ever been introduced by someone with more eloquence or feeling. Thank you so much. I knew tonight was going to be a special night, but I wasn't prepared for how moved I am already by the sight of these beautiful 5 young women with so much talent. And I have had a chance to talk with them over dinner a bit. Everyone's been saying to me sort of on the side, they're an extraordinary group, and you really are an extraordinary group. I'm really honored to be in your company, and I'm so honored to be here tonight. I know that you have a lot of faculty here tonight. A lot of mentors are in this room, so it's very powerful. But I want to give a special shout out to the parents, the grandparents, the guardians, the extended family who are also in the room. I think it takes a special kind of courage and love to support a child who wants to in some way go into the arts as their career, as their calling. After all, it's a step into the great unknown, isn't it? And you heard that I wrote a book on The Great Gatsby, on F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm constitutionally incapable of giving a talk without citing F. Scott Fitzgerald. So as I was thinking about tonight, I kept thinking about F. Scott Fitzgerald's parents in the summer of 1919. F. Scott Fitzgerald showed up at his parents' doorstep in St. Paul that summer. He was 22 years old, and he was a failure. He had essentially been kicked out of Princeton. He would have been kicked out of Princeton, where he went as an undergrad and never graduated, except that World War I intervened. And so he left Princeton without a degree. He got a C in English, at least one C. Imagine that. Well, he entered the Army during World War I. The general consensus of the men who served under him was that he was one of the worst second lieutenants in the entire United States Army. He never went overseas. He never saw battle overseas, which was a lifelong source of shame to him. He met and got engaged to Zelda Sayer, and after the war, he moved to New York City to try to make it as a writer. In the 5 months that he lived in New York City, the room that he rented in upper Manhattan, above Columbia, the walls of that room became papered with 123 rejection letters from the various magazines that he sent out short stories to. Zelda probably wisely broke the engagement, and Scott moved back to St. Paul, showed up at his parents' doorstep, and announced his plan for the next stage of his life. He told them that he was going to rewrite the manuscript of the novel that had already been rejected twice by Scribners. He was going to move into his old bedroom and rewrite that novel. That must have sounded like a terrific plan. He worked at odd jobs for what he called beer and cigarette money. He rewrote the novel, and the third time was the charm. That novel became This Side of Paradise. When it was published in April of 1920, it gave the Jazz Age its name. Fitzgerald is the writer who coined the term the Jazz Age. And his career unspooled from there. I think it's safe to say that his parents must have been pleasantly surprised by how things happened after that point in his life. Being a writer is so difficult because you are heading off into the unknown. And I think, too, of what E.L. Doctorow said about writing. And I think his famous lines about writing, which I know some of you in this room know, really also apply to being the parents of a writer. Doctorow said that writing a novel is like driving a car at night in the fog. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can go the whole distance that way. Well, These young women are about to set off, right? Into the night, in the fog. The way is certainly, I think, brightened tonight by the affirmation of the judges who've decided that they are the finalists for the Sophie Kerr Prize. Maybe some of you parents are in the anxious back seat, still giving direction or trying to your children. But it's a road that's filled with a lot of twists and turns and bumps and definitely detours. So everybody needs to buckle up and take a breath, and certainly that's what we'll do tonight. I looked over the array of genres, of accomplishments of the five of you. I mean, yes, poetry, nonfiction, journalism, creative writing, book arts. I'm sure I've left about 5 things out. Well, again, as most of you know, a great writer died this week who also encompassed multitudes in his writing. Tom Wolfe was one of the creators of new journalism, that form that we now don't think is so new because everyone does it. That wonderful blending of reportorial fact with the creative embellishments that the novel can bring to writing. Wolfe published so many amazing books. The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, which opened up the 1960s and sort of the fringe elements of the 1960s to the rest of America. The Right Stuff, his book about the test pilots and astronauts who really kick-started the space program. And of course, he also wrote novels. So just the array of genres that he gave us during his lifetime, I think are, pretty astounding. But I wanted to focus for a moment on the fact that in addition to being a master of pop pyrotechnics, over the top in his writing, I mean, I tried to isolate a paragraph for tonight to give those of you who don't know Wolfe that well a taste of his voice, and it's impossible because his paragraphs will go on for pages, just kind of scattered with exclamations, obscenities, everything else, different voices, so many great passages, but they can't be isolated. But what did strike me about Wolfe is the fact that he found that voice in the time-honored way. He found that voice by learning the rules and then breaking them. He also found that voice by reading a lot of other great writers. Wolfe went to Yale and worked on a PhD in American Studies. And that PhD was never accepted. The dissertation was never accepted, I should say. It was turned down. One of Wolfe's biographers says that the reason it was turned down was because it sounded too much like Tom Wolfe. Exclamation marks, pyrotechnics, over-the-topness. But he found another use for that education. And that's something that I think is useful to remember when you take those detours in life. It all comes along with you, everything that you've picked up. Wolfe made it look easy. Wolfe always seemed to make it look easy in his writing, as though, the words just flowed out of him. I teach a course at Georgetown in New York literature, and we often read The Bonfire of the Vanities, his great novel about New York in the go-go 80s. It's so much fun. It's so lively, plot-driven, but also filled with such sharp social commentary. It looks easy. It wasn't easy for Wolfe. It wasn't easy. His routine was to get up every morning, dress himself in one of his trademark white suits. If you've never seen a picture of Tom Wolfe, take a look. He always had beautifully tailored white suits, bespoke shirts, etc. He would sit down at his typewriter. Some writers still find that works the best for them. And he would set himself the challenge of writing 10 pages triple-spaced every day. It didn't matter if it took him an hour. If it took him an hour, he was done. Most days it took much longer than that. 10 pages every day, unfailingly. And that really is a dramatization, I think, of one of the elemental rules of writing. Ass in chair, every day, sitting there, facing that screen, that page, whatever you're facing. Ass in chair. I remember stumbling upon the electric Kool-Aid acid test when I was in high school, so a few years after it was published, and I was just blown away. I mean, I remember laughing out loud on the subway in New York, just by the sheer brazenness of the language. The summer I read Tom Wolfe, I was going into my senior year of high school. I was working at a 5 and Dime on Fifth Avenue, Cress's 5 and 10, and I was taking a creative writing course at the New School. I thought I was the coolest thing ever. My goal that summer was to be a cross between Dorothy Parker and Carole King on the cover of Tapestry. For those of you under the age of 45, think Lorde, maybe, Lana Del Rey, somebody like that. Yeah, I fell short of both those ambitions. But I was trying. It was a good summer. I don't remember the name of the writer who taught the course. I remember that she had published some short stories, but I do remember something she told us on the first day of the course. She told us that she made ends meet as a writer by writing game show questions for Jeopardy. That told me something about the financial insecurities of embracing the writer's life. Of course, my heroine, Dorothy Parker, had her own witty commentary on the economic ups and downs of writing. It's a pretty famous quote. Parker once said, "The two most beautiful words in the English language are check enclosed." So translate that to an electronic payment has been made, right? Years later, when I was in grad school, and I was in grad school in the late 70s, throughout the 80s, the high time of, literary theory and deconstruction, and I was really chafing at the constraints of academic writing. Through a lucky break, I started writing for the Village Voice, which was one of the great New York newspapers, and also an embodiment of that new journalism that Tom Wolfe helped pioneer. I wrote reviews, I wrote essays for the Village Voice, and a first-person expose that I wrote about being a grader for 2 summers for the Educational Testing Service, the English AP exam, and what a scam it was picked up by Fresh Air on NPR. They asked me to do a version of the piece for Fresh Air, and I whittled down this 10,000-word piece in The Voice to 750 words, one of the greatest writing lessons I've ever experienced, and the rest is history. That was almost 30 years ago. That's 30 years of pretty much weekly deadlines, teaching literature courses at Georgetown for most of that time, writing for other places, writing books. It's been the greatest writing life that I can imagine, and I hope it never ends. But it's not the writing life that I imagined I would have when I took that course at the New School and thought I was going to be Dorothy Parker, taking long lunches and making, constant witticisms and writing short stories and reviews and poetry. It's a different writing life. If I can be bold with the comparison, Dorothy Parker lived a life that she didn't imagine she was going to have when she started out. And in fact, she started out writing ad copy in the late teens, early 20s of the last century. She could never have imagined that she would have the life she had. Tom Wolfe, when he was getting that dissertation rejected by Yale, could not have imagined that he was going to be one of the fathers of new journalism. You never know which way the road is going to take you. But I think it's safe to say that if you stick at it, if you keep that ass in the chair, to be a little blunt, it will take you somewhere. It will take you places that you never expect that even exist. So many of us in this room share a love of words with these 5 finalists. So many of us understand some of the passion that drives you. I think the exciting part of where you are right now is that you don't know where it's going to take you. And that's scary, but it's also very exciting. I think that we all, though, agree that it's going to take you somewhere. The judges for the Sophie Kerr Prize thought that all of you, all 5 finalists, have something. And that's something that you need to remember. Those of you who wind up not being the winner, we think you have something. If I can make an elegant little turn here, we think you've got the right stuff that Tom Wolfe talked about in his book. You do. To the winner of the prize, one thing I hope you'll do is just savor tonight. These moments don't come that often, even in the greatest of careers, and I hope you'll just take a breath and savor tonight, and also consider the prize a benediction for those days when the writing is hard, when the mind feels like sludge, when the page is blank. But I do want to again say that if you put that butt in the chair, you can tell I like that advice. That's my number one rule for writing. You stay in that chair. That work will propel you, like Wolfe's pilots and astronauts, into a different world, a different and exciting world that you right now can't imagine, but that you'll arrive at through your own hard-earned talent. Thank you so much. These young women are so extraordinary that they slipped me a piece of paper before dinner began, and they said, "We don't think you're really going to be allowed to read this, but we wrote up our own little bios." And I said, "Who's going to stop us?" And that also told me something. It's good not to follow the rules all the time. So I'm going to read their bios by way of introduction. And since I just received these tonight, if I stumble on the names of the various honors and societies, please give me a pass. Our first finalist is Rhea Aurora. She's an English and political science double major who's a member of Pi Sigma Alpha, the Political Science Honor Society, Sigma Tau Delta, the English Honor Society, and Omicron Delta Kappa, the Leadership Honor Society. Rhea was a tutor at the Writing Center and is a sister of Zeta Tau Alpha. Her portfolio contained pieces of journalism, portions of her thesis, and short fiction pieces. Rhea's prose captures the attention of its reader through its thoughtful and measured diction and its breathtaking sincerity. Please welcome Rhea Aurora. Get out of here.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Rhea, and today I'm going to read to you 2 pieces from my portfolio. They're fictional and they're written in 3 languages, English, Hindi, and Bengali. So this is Roommates, Parents, and Rice. Until the August of 2014, the longest I had lived away from my family was 15 days during a school trek to a peak in the Himalayas. And on the 15th day, when my group made its way downhill to piped water and cell phone service, I cried when I heard Mama's concerned voice on the other end of the call asking if I was being fed enough rice. 2014 के 31 अगस्त से पहले, before the 31st of August 2014, Mama took it upon herself to pack an entire cooler of frozen Indian dishes made with rice to take with me to Massachusetts. Jodi tumi badi miss karo, if you miss home, she said. I moved into Blackstone Hall 202 before my roommate Sarah, 3 days before General Freshman Orientation for Clark University, class of 2018, because International Student Orientation was scheduled separately. My parents were grateful for Sarah's offer to share her mini fridge and microwave because the room, do logo ke liye bahut chota hai, was too small for 2 people, Papa predicted. Mama taught me how to make my bed and gave me precise instructions on heating levels for the food, while Papa waited patiently to educate me about my insurance plan and new bank account. Awkward hugs followed, and affectionate goodbyes were saved for texts behind the safety of a screen. Strangely, Sarah's father made her bed, while her mother lectured about frugality at the local grocery store, and both parents declared their love for her upon departure. Kisi ne text nahi kiya. No one texted. About 2 weeks into the semester, Sarah asked me why her microwave smelled like that. My nose investigated, but only found remnants of maa ka pyar, a mother's love, disguised as a hata in the kadhai, spatula in the frying pan, drawing patterns in her daughter's favorite satiny smooth jhol, curry. I confessed to using the microwave to heat my frozen Indian food like Sarah allowed me to, and apologized for its badboo, unwanted stench. I would be more comfortable if you bought a separate microwave, Sarah said. And later that night, on the 15th of September, 15 days after move-in day, I cried when I heard Mama's concerned voice on the other end of the call asking if I was eating enough rice. Winter. I want to be poetic about my pain, but this empty tightness in my chest feels simple, like barren coldness without my mother's steaming bowl of makon bhaat, buttered rice. In the solitude of Blackstone Hall, now peppered with white December flurry, I feel empty constantly. Bengali winters are evening pakora or chai, onion rings and tea, decorated with me wearing Mama's soft purple sweater and shimmery blue satin pajamas, seated babu hoy, cross-legged, in front of the television with my younger brother, a memory that now haunts the 4th floor of 13 Ray Street, 12,948,000 kilometers away in Kolkata. American winters feel like slushy paved pathways, begging I skid, sadistically keeping me alert, or main shanti se saas nahi le sakti, stealing any peaceful, satin-soft breaths I have to spare. I want to be poetic about my pain, but this emptiness in my chest feels like the ugly, persistent sound of crickets piercing the stillness of the fresh, damp air that settles heavily after a monsoon shower. A sound you are confident exists because you can feel it echoing around you, but cannot prove because you do not know where to find it.
Our next finalist is Caroline Harvey. Caroline served as editor-in-chief of The Collegian, the college's undergraduate literary journal, managing editor of the Washington College Review, the college's academic journal, and a copy editor for The Elm, the college's student newspaper. Caroline is a member of Sigma Tau Delta and Omicron Delta Kappa. Caroline's portfolio contained poetry, including part of her crown of sonnets, creative nonfiction, and an excerpt of her thesis. Her poems push the boundary of form. The carefully crafted lines unveil a haunting honesty, precision of imagery, and a distinct thoughtfulness. Please welcome Caroline Harvey.
Hello. So I'm Caroline. I'm notorious for my bug poems, but I will be reading to you from the crown of sonnets that I've been working on about a psychotic break. So I'll be reading 4 poems from that suite for you tonight. Psychosis. If God had hands, they'd be around my throat, vines stilling me to sleep until I breathe again, hope for some release or mercy. I wish I were rotting like a pile of leaves, like so many beetles built into pyres, like a song that stops. But I am nothing if not persistent. I am heaven-sent seed that grew to leaf like the tendrils that try to choke me now. Dear stems, narrow yourselves, climb me, give me blue like a river, teach me to slow. I want so badly to be better, to know, to speak. God has no hands with which to strangle me. Psychosis. I breathed again, hoped for some release, but I couldn't write it. For so long, I'd been able to say, spider, and there, one appeared as if I clipped my nail and from it sprang 8 legs. I wish I had so many arms. Imagine Da Vinci drew me splayed, my 8 hands holding pens and moving. Imagine myself as more than I was. Imagine this for me, because I can't. Once, I was a spider. Once, I was beautiful. I was beautiful until I wasn't. I was a spider until my mind beat itself. I beat myself until I had nothing, until I cried. I had nothing left. I wish I were spiders, or beautiful, or mercy. I wish I were. Psychosis. Narrow yourselves, climb me, give me blue. I ask the vines, but they refuse. So I look elsewhere, and there, Shipyard Lane, just before Rock Hall, I find it. I want this. I see the river and need to curl inside her. I don't know how to tell you this, that I made it waist deep in the water before I realized I was not ready to die. Not like this. I am not the Victorian tradition of the woman drowning herself. I almost was. Some days I still want to be a body floating down the Chester. I want my hands cold. I drove home soaking. I cried when I dried. I am wearing those pants as I write this. I am recovery. I want to learn like a river. Teach me to slow. I want. Psychosis. So badly I try to be. Better to know, to speak, trust. I put the pills inside me and they work. Mostly. I want so badly to be done with this. So badly I need these pills to be faithful. God made chemicals. He made them holy and expensive. I want this so badly to be worth it. Sometimes I cannot say it is. When I take my sertraline and aripiprazole, I say their names. Let the words rest on my tongue like the pills do. I only take them with water as a reminder. I so badly hurt to drink. I can't stop saying, drown. Yet I command, it is worth it. I am better now at saying things and meaning them. Hear this. God has no hands with which to strangle me. Thank you.
I feel like we all need to take a breath after the 2 of you. Okay, Brooke Schultz, finalist number 3. Brooke served as editor-in-chief of the Elm and prose editor of the Collegian. She was the president of Sigma Tau Delta and is a member of Phi Beta Kappa. She was also a tutor at the Writing Center. Brooke's portfolio contains part of her thesis on Sophie Kerr, fiction pieces, and journalistic pieces. Her journalism is tight, sharp, and rigorous, an indicator of her honest and investigative nature. Her fiction toes a lyrical line that grabs and intrigues every reader through its mystery and nuance. Brooke Schultz.
Hi, friends. I'm going to read a short piece of fiction called Cut Deck. Right. No one really talks about the girls here, the ones who have gone missing since 1992. There have been 5. Sometimes I see them. When I do, they are always together, washed up on the shoreline of the river. The brown water laps onto the muddy beach and stretches to their waists at high tide. Their dresses, wetted and fitted to the folds of their skin, have a translucent glow. Shoots of bay grass have wrapped themselves tightly around the girls, forming a verdant shroud. They lay in a line, arms at their sides. They're not there, of course. They're not anywhere, far as everyone is concerned. But sometimes, when I pause on the bridge, leaning my bike against the rail, it is almost as if they are found. Sometimes I picture that they have already sunk into the earth, and there is only the slightest wisp of white fabric, a sharp contrast to the black mud. In their place, the weeds begin to grow. I think about them often because the first one to go missing was my mother. The sheriff says that there's no pattern to the disappearing. He tells me that's just what happens. Girls go missing. It's not surprising that 5 may vanish over the course of 26 years. He doesn't mind that I eat lunch with him on Fridays, though, so I bring him his tuna on rye from the deli. I instruct the girl behind the counter to lather it with more mayonnaise and tell her he prefers 2 slices of tomato. Excuse me. While I take a seat in the old chair across from his desk, he picks at the chips and tells me what it was like to drive up to the house, my grandmother pacing along the porch, clutching me to her chest. I was so silent, he says quietly, so silent he thought I might be dead. Some days he tells me about the other girls. He has their reports all filed together in his desk. On his bulletin board, he has the newspaper clippings pinned there. Marietta woman reported missing. Marietta woman reported missing. Marietta woman reported missing. Marietta woman reported missing. I've read the stories too, memorized that headline. I have traced the patterns through the spaces on the words on newsprint. I know that they disappear as if they'll only be gone a second. I know the last place they were seen grows bachelor's button, no matter the threat of frost. When I think of them together. Perhaps my mother took them, and perhaps she takes care of them, cooking dinner. When I was younger, I would close my eyes and think of them sitting around the table together. They would be living just a few towns over, a sisterhood, a coven. I'd picture them with mismatched mugs and silverware, as though the things that go missing from diners or restaurants end up with them in their cabinets, in their drawers. I'd picture the table brimming over with flowers, aster for wisdom, chrysanthemums for love, daffodils for rebirth, stock for happiness. In the moments between sleep, I would eavesdrop on their conversations, their worries. I perfected the pitch of my mother's voice. Each time another girl went missing, I thought of them opening the door to her, welcoming her in. She would sit on the sofa while my mother made her tea. One of the women would draw her card. I would envision the one that suited her best based off her missing person picture, posted on the telephone pole out by the local high school. Perhaps she was the high priestess, the queen of cups, or maybe the fool reversed. During that time, I biked throughout the town, looping through the quiet neighborhoods. The stars would be out, though muted by the street lamps and the porch lights that spilled into the night. As I went by every house, I would listen to only the whir of my bicycle as I tried to figure out which one they were all in. I would only ever catch glimpses through the windows, yellow with light. I spent my childhood waiting for one of them to be found, or waiting for them to come get me. I spent 26 years waiting, and today I am as old as she was when she disappeared. Thank you.
Mallory Smith is our 4th finalist. She served as a co-president of the Writers Union and was a member of Sigma Tau Delta and Cater Society. She was the poetry editor of The Collegian, and her portfolio contained portions of creative nonfiction and poetry. Mallory's poetry captivates the reader with its eloquent narrative. There's a precise honesty in her writing that creates a sense of place. She can put name to the things that occur in life, and she can do so beautifully. Mallory, you are up.
Hi, I'm Mallory. I'm reading 3 poems for you today, and I'd like to put a content warning on the last one because the patriarchy. This first poem is called Proper Greetings. While shopping in the local department store, I do not hope to see you at the accessories wall, fingering zirconium and nickel earrings, buttons made to look like pearls, rose gold watches. But when I do, I am struck with how average this scene once was. I could size up a whole store with one walkthrough, but you wanted to touch and examine and make serious thought of it all. In the afterhaze of a Christmas rush, the store is quiet. I observe your head cocked to inspect a tangle of necklaces that are the same but for the charms. Then you turn to me as if to ask my opinion, except it has been years. There are things that we will never get the satisfaction of exchanging. More still, there is space between our bodies, and your hair is shorter, and I have gotten fat. A man on the phone pushes by me. There are many words that I have practiced at night to say to you. Words like chlorine to the eyes, burning, and then antiseptic. Words like honeysuckle and loneliness. You see, if I began to talk, I would not stop until someone was on fire or we were leaving together, both of which I am not yet willing to admit. Instead, I take my purse out of the cart and turn away from you again. I mean this to say, I am well. This next poem is called Provence. You looked away when I told you X was a city to be alone. All that light made me manic as a train, as a tongue pressed against a foreign track. Your French, a series of incomprehensible orgasms. I made you speak for me. I thought you said something dirty to the man selling avocados. You peeled one with your hands and threw the pit into the street. A smear of green semen caught your jaw. I catted you clean under the Hôtel de Ville clock. We laughed in English as I scrubbed you with spit. I asked you how to say, "The cat likes potato chips." I want to fuck the moon. 2 first-class tickets. We got drunk on the train heading north up the coast, and I told you about my new affinity for foreskin. The modern businessman in his plaid-checked socks looked at us both before deciding that you were the more beautiful one. You feigned interest in the Ulux and the Colza while he complimented your French. Champagne came out of my nose and needled my sinuses. Outside, the country pleated its greenness into the sea. My accent sank embarrassingly southern with every sip. Our sobriquet business Romain leaned into the aisle before switching cars outside of Bezige. You told the woman with the cart we didn't want anything. I apologized for plagiarizing your loneliness again, and then asked how you kept your skin so clear. On either side of the train tracked miles of rapeseed, immeasurable yellow. It was like being trapped in a Van Gogh while being Van Gogh. It made me hungry. The TGV moved too fast for the people on the platform to know we were Americans. The evening gave away the last of its dappled light. This last poem is called Self-Portrait with Tinder Lines, and these are things that over the past few years men have said to me on the dating app Tinder. strap in. What's the one fantasy you've always had but never acted out? I can make you moan with pleasure. I'm 5'6". Is that okay? You look tall. You look fun. You look like you have daddy issues. Did you lose the weight yet? Your pics look skinny, but fat girls are good at lighting and angles and shit. Maybe your parents should have taught you portion control. Let's meet so we're not strangers. Sorry I messaged you so much. I've been lonely. I've been busy. I've been thinking about you in that dress. It's getting me hard now. Wanna suck me, mama? I could make you do whatever I want. Do you do anal? You up for some fun? BJ, answer me. How are you with restraints? Are you just a pen pal? I own you now. Come over. Anyone can find you through your Tinder profile. Be careful, because there are some real creeps out there. It's open season on horny sluts like you. I'm married. My wife likes to watch or join in. I'm married, but she doesn't know I'm on here. I want to spank you like the disobedient little girl we both know you are. I want to meet you. Come get a drink with me. I'm a gentleman. I'm a doctor. I'm only in town until Thursday. No pressure, really, I promise. Come over. It'll be fun. Thank you.
And our last finalist is Casey Williams. Casey also served as a co-president of Writers Union and editor-in-chief of the Pegasus, the college's yearbook, and is a member of Sigma Tau Delta. Casey's portfolio included some of her art, and I got to see a little of it, including book covers designed for a local author. Her visuals jump off the page, and the images in her poetry are just as poignant. Her work perfectly captures the environment in its complexity, in its beauty, and its politicized nature. Casey, you have the finale.
Hello, my name is Casey. I'll be reading 2 poems for you all tonight. The first poem being, "The Last Bee Drinks Neonicotinoid." Where is our kingdom, our city of beeswax? Is our gold gone, our pollen bred? The honey drip chandeliers of amber. Where did the towers rise from, and why do they smell so alien? Asters, phloxes, where are your blue halos? Runway, UV ray, floral beacon gone. The nectar tastes so harsh. I'm vomiting, but not for the usual reasons. The children, where are they? They're so small. Flower seed, dandelion tuft, wind pick 'em up, gone. I can't feel the tremble of my sister's wings, but I can hear the gnashing of mites. All we have left is the hive's sweet darkness. The honeycomb refracts so strangely in my compound eyes. Do I see gold in the grass below? The next poem I will be reading is titled "The Lullaby of the Yesterday Pets." Every day, the neighbor boy made coffins from shoe boxes. He lined them with the same newspaper his pets had slept on. Maybe if he didn't love like an unlocked fence, his pets might not have weaned their brief comforts from the dark underbelly of the couch. Maybe they wouldn't have sought out their own versions of stillness. The leopard geckos pied pipered by lead pipes, the hamster's respite in the warm cradle of the dryer. Easter rabbits in their clumsy feet. How lucky the cats must have felt. Not the ones that lived to warm pillows, but the bastards that sprung like dog shit amongst the buttercups and the wooden swing seat. Underneath was where he buried them, and every day the boy rocked himself until the sun waxed its blue haze into night, and then the seat would whir a lullaby through the lips of its hinges. In its low whine and in the dark shelter of the shoebox tombs, the pets found some semblance of stability. You see, the boy's parents wouldn't afford them this privilege, for the pets were brought to life to teach this boy how to love. In a spine slipping from its sheath of skin, in the wail shared between car and runaway, there were lessons to preserve tomorrow's children. The boy raises one now, one that isn't even his own. While his girlfriend works night shifts at Walgreens, the baby weans a comfort once rare to find in his arms. He cradles the baby, far from the wooden swing seat, still whirring its lullaby, which he now sings for this child. How the ghosts long to hear the boy sing it just once. Thank you.
I'd like to invite President Landgraf to come up with me and help me open this envelope.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I hope we're not going to be like Warren Beatty and whoever
No,
opens.
but you know, I used to run ETS. Did you know that? No.
We have a few things to talk about. All right. Okay. Together?
Together.
The winner of the 2018 Sophie Kerr Prize is Caroline
Harvey.
Hi again. Last year, I remember when Kat won, she said that she was glad that she wrote something down because she was without words, and I feel very similarly. I'd like to thank first my family, who have all been so supportive of me throughout everything, throughout my hopes of getting to this place. I'd like to thank my professors for being so inspiring, for being so wonderful and helpful for me. And in particular, I have to thank Dr. Hall, who I took my first undergraduate class with him, and he advised my thesis. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to survive being here. And I'd also like to thank Professor Jean Dubrow, who no longer teaches here, but who was the first person to sit me down and call me poet. And that was so important and so valuable for me. I don't know where I would be without the Lit House and the Lit House staff, especially Julie and Lindsay. You guys have been friends, you guys have been like mothers, you guys have been wonderful bosses and just incredible people that I've had such an honor to be with. My friends who have supported me, who are here today, especially Maggie and Brooklyn, who made it here from Lancaster. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here at all. And finally, I have to thank my cohort. I have to thank everyone who I grew up in this community with, everyone who wrote with me, who read with me, and especially Rhea and Brooke and Mallory and Casey, all of whom came together in this moment. In this moment, we were all together, and really, I mean, there's so much about this place that I love, and there's so much about this place that I wish I could change. But the one thing that I hold on to at all times is the people, the wonderful students who have helped me get to where I am. So thank you.
I told you they were incredible, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for helping us celebrate this moment with these amazing writers. We can't wait to see what they do next. The next immediate thing we're all going to do is go out to the lobby and share a champagne toast, raise our glasses to these writers and to the graduating class of 2018. Thank you so much, everyone.